Hi everyone, so this is my project. I decided to choose stress as we age. It's a survey-based study, and what that pretty much means is that I didn't go off of any research that I found online or previous case studies, anything like that. I kind of want to do something original, so I decided to see how stress levels changed throughout Athens County as we age, and I just surveyed some people, like I said, and went from there. The reason why I decided to do this was because I'm currently always stressed out, and I wanted to see if people think that that changes as they get older, or if they think that stress increases or decreases, etc. And that's totally based off of their income or level of happiness, family, money, all that kind of stuff. So we'll get started. I think it's also kind of cool that I went ahead and drew all my slides for you, so as we go through, you'll be able to see that I drew all of these. So my study began. As you can see, I interviewed 6 people in total, 2 of which were students in college in their 20s, 2 of which were middle-aged individuals around the age of 50s, they're in their 50s, and 2 people were over the age of 75, which technically we consider that to be elderly adult populations. I also decided to do 1 male and 1 female per group. I thought this was important because we got the opinions of everyone. So all ages, gender, etc. I want to see if that made a difference or not. So that's what I decided to do. So going through with that, once I I randomly selected my 3 males and 3 females, I decided to ask them 5 questions each. And those 5 questions were, how old are you? From a level of 1 to 10, how stressed are you currently overall? 1 being not at all, and 10 being absolutely unbearable. Why did you pick that number and or associate yourself with that number? Has your stress increased as you have aged? And if yes, how so? And the last one was, what do you think contributes to your stress level the most? So I thought those were 5 original questions. I made them up on my own, and I thought that kind of gave a broad spectrum of stress and how I could depict that throughout all ages. So moving on from that, first I started with my college age group, and I have this little thing to show you. So I started with the females, and within my female population, they said that overall some general consensus things that they said were that things that stressed them out included looks and beauty, school, bills, tuition, rent, finding a love for the rest of their life or a spouse, and their future. So whether that mean being a mom or future goals, future careers, stuff like that. And then moving over to the male side of things, males at this age tended to be stressed out on also schools, bills, tuition, etc. FOMO, or fear of missing out. So with parties and going out with their friends to the bars rather than studying and being a homebody, that was a big one. And finally, also girls or a significant other as well. That's really what they wanted. And both males and females in this group concluded that they thought they were stressed. Pretty much around a 6, 7, both of them. They said that it was high because they were worried about paying for school and getting through, but they figured that once they got a job and got out of college, things would start to subside and their stress would be reduced. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Then I moved on to our middle-aged population, and when surveying them, the females in that group said that they were stressed out about their children, money and bills as well, being at their jobs. They felt trapped and as if they would love to get a new job, but being a middle-aged woman would stop them from that because they're already past their time of college, but they're not old enough for retirement, so they just kind of felt trapped. Their coworkers gave them stress. Also, what I thought was interesting, taking care of their parents. So this generation, both males and females, tends to be the sandwich generation, where they're in charge of taking care of not only their children, but their parents as well. So constant caregiving. And I thought it was interesting that they were stressed about their parents as well, even though they're fully self-sufficient. Females were also stressed about food and retirement, what's to come after retirement, as well as dying and death at a young age and making sure that their health was well kept. On the other aspect of that, males, they were stressed about money and bills as well. Being a provider, so making sure that they had money for their family and children to eat and put food on the table, etc. They were stressed about paying for their child's tuition and making sure that their children got through college or high school if they were at a paid institution or a paid high school, stuff like that. And once again, also primarily concerned about retirement and death as well at a young age. And I thought that was interesting. I kind of asked both groups, at what level are you stressed right now? Theirs was around an 8 or a 9, so it was really, really, really high from what I thought, based on that 10-level scale. And they said that they were really concerned about their health and death because of all of the upcoming healthcare things that are going on and businesses giving money to be healthy and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they were really concerned about that. But like I said, very high stress levels overall in that group. Finally, moving on to our last group of individuals, we had our elderly population. And the females within the elderly population seemed extremely happy, little to no stress at all. They said that they kind of felt bad or sad, more so depressed, I guess, about their looks changing, but they weren't stressed about it. They pretty much accepted that, hey, I'm old and this is what's going to happen, and but they were primarily concerned about death and dying and, where they would go from there. So the afterlife, I guess you could say. And surprisingly enough, males on the other end of that, spectrum, they were also really stressed about death and dying and where their bodies and spirits were going to go after death. But once again, their bills were paid. Driving sports cars, their house was paid off, their car was paid off. They had money in the bank. They both went on vacations and stuff like that. So when I asked this group primarily, what is your stress level on the number scale, they recorded all the way down the 4s, 3s, because they just said there was little stress and all their stress was behind them. And now it was just time for them to sit back and really enjoy the rest of their career. Their life. Their careers are over. But enjoy the rest of their life and go from there. So concluding the stress that, this is off-centered. Concluding what I found in my study, I drew this little chart. I thought it was interesting. It pretty much just shows from birth being on this side to death being on this side, how our stress ultimately increases and decreases. And as you can see, right about here when you're in your 20s, that's when I recorded that it was peaking at its height, starting to increase. And then right around your 50s, that middle age, when you're that sandwich generation, stress levels were the highest. And then slowly starting to decrease as you retire into death. So that was pretty cool. I've also learned this in a few other classes, that's typically the pattern of stress. And I think that's really interesting because, I would have thought that the older you get, the more stressed you become, but even into late adulthood. But I guess that it doesn't matter because you're overpaid and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool. Moving on to my next one. So here I have some causes of the stress and ways that I think that you could potentially improve that. So overall, with this I kind of had some help. I watched a YouTube video by it was just called by Dr. Mike. It was on YouTube. And he just showed one of these drawn out videos like I did, but it was actually within time because he had a professional do it. And he talked about the multiple outcomes of stress and causes of that. And he pretty much said that stress is just very complex. And so there's positive stress and negative stress. I think oftentimes we associate, especially stress as we age, as all negative because more things are getting put on your plate and you're stressing out about it. But he did a really good job of explaining how there's positive and negative. And some of the negative stress that he talked about were causes. From a physiologist point of view, where that you get increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, and chemical changes happen in your body. Where from a social worker's aspect, you become vulnerable as you get older, and coping with your troubles becomes harder. Also, sometimes when there's so much stress, you have bad problem-solving skills. I thought that was really interesting as well. And he said from a doctor's perspective, there's a worse quality of life. Depression and anxiety begins to kick in. The use of alcohol and drugs is increased because that becomes legalized. and there's a worse health outcomes. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. And then those were the negatives. However, the positives were that, for instance, he used a sports aspect way of this. So yeah, like increase of stress, but sometimes when you're an athlete, even throughout your life, if you're golfing or you're playing high intensity sports or running, the more stressed you are, the higher optimum performance you have. So actually you're getting better the more stressed you are. So however you want to look at it, I think stress is both positive and negative, and there's a lot of causes. When talking about my own causes that I thought might have caused some of the stress, I thought that some causes could have been the control over the individual's life at that point in time, their social network, so how often they're allowed to go out and be out with their friends or their family outside of the house, or if they're constantly home doing work or chores, how they deal with change and their outlook on optimism with their life. So if they're negative Nancy's all the time, they're probably more stressed out, but if they are more so positive, then they're probably less stressed. And honestly, self-care, I thought that self-care was a big one. Being in my major, I know that, exercise and proper nutrition, adequate amounts of happiness and humor, those are all great things that contribute to positive self-care, which also contributes to less stress. So, and then one last thing, I thought that their work and coworkers, school load, money, bills, those were all ones that I thought personally would be to affect their stress as well. But, we see how that people said that in the interviews as well, that did contribute. And I think some improvements from stress overall, I personally would, if I were recommending ways to improve your stress as you age, I would use some of the tasks that we learned how to do in class. So mindful thinking, meditation, proper exercise and diet, just a bunch of stuff like that. I think those all help with improving your stress overall and making sure that your mind is happy before you go to bed. You're not dwelling on different things. Also, I think as you age, it becomes easier to, pay those bills, and, you're not working anymore, you're retired, or you're not job searching, you found that job, or, as sad as it sounds, your parents or whoever you're taking care of might have died off, and so you need to worry about yourself at that point. So I can totally understand why things happen the way they happen in this study, and I hope that you all learned something, because I did, and that's about it. So, the end. Thank you for your time, and have a good day.